Welcome to the Grand Shorts, a part of the Grand Podcast. The Grand. My name is Niels Tudor-Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grand. The Grand is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. When you podcast, you sometimes need to shake things up and try to do things differently. I have launched a short format some time ago, but it needed some rethinking. So here it is, my first shot at serving you vibrant, short podcast episodes with strong engagement. Casper Ravnsted-Larsen is an old contact from Brussels. He is a journalist and has been working on a generic communication strategy outline for organizations. We decided to build a podcast series rolling out this strategy in short and concise episodes with concrete examples. With this, I also want to get closer to you, dear listener. We want to get your feedback and for you to share your experience and insights on the topics we discuss, because it adds depth and reflection to the benefit for all. So what will I do? Maybe you noticed my LinkedIn post with a mug. You can win that mug. The next 5 months, we will release episodes in this series. And every month, we choose the best comment or question posted on LinkedIn to win an exclusive The Grand mug. You can't buy this mug. You can only win it. And even better, by the end of this series, we will make a listener panel episode where all 5 winners of the mug will be invited for a podcast recording where we discuss an exchange on communication strategy within EU R&D funding. Now, let's get going. In the first 3 episodes here, we focus on building the strategy. Here in the first out of 3 short episodes, we run through defining objectives, identifying target audience, and doing a SWOT analysis. On the episode side, you'll find our script so that you can follow our discussion. You'll find the link in the episode notes where you listen to your podcast. Please enjoy. The Grand. Welcome to The Grand, the EU funding podcast. What we're going to happen here. What's going to happen here? It's something. It's very interesting, and I'm been looking very much forward to this. I'm gonna serve you a series of short episodes on communication strategy within funding. And before anything else, Casper, welcome.
Thank you, Niels.
Casper, we've been discussing this for a while. Actually, since we recorded last time, and you're one of the earliest recordings I actually had. So it's been a while. It's been back and forth, and then lots of breaks. But now we finally sort of got tangible onto it. So the idea was I wanted to make a communication series together with you, because you're the best one I know within this, and you have a very good take on these things. And then we brainstormed together how this could be done, if it should just be an episode or 3 long episodes or whatever. But I would like to put some energy into my short format. And this is perfect for this, because we can sketch out each episode. We can take each little small topic, and we're going to get back to that shortly. But the idea is that this should be a series where anyone sitting with communication dissemination within the EU funding area, you can tap in. You can either listen to everything, or you can go and open up each little drawer that is exactly what you need when you sit and discuss in your communication team. So it's going to be a little bit like, I'm going to go to this shelf, I'm going to go to this shelf. So that's the idea. We're going to test it out. We'll see if it works.
I'm sure it will, Niels.
So first of all, the topic, communication. Just this. So the first episode in the whole series is going to be a little longer, probably 35 minutes, because we need to. This is where we're going to explain you. This is where we're going to sort of set the pitch for what we're going to do. But before anything else, Casper, introduce yourself for the dear listeners.
Well, thank you first of all for having me and for the kind words. I'm a journalist. Don't hold that against me. I dear listeners, Niels already got over it. I guess a few years back. Now I did start out my career doing communications, like on the other side of the table. So I should be somewhere in the clear, at least in this context. I spent the first 6-7 years of my career after doing my master's in journalism in Brussels, to begin with, doing various stuff for various organizations, but in the end doing a stint of I think 5 years altogether at the Zealand Denmark EU office. I can explain later why I say was a satellite office of the regional administration of the region of Zealand in Denmark. That region is defined by being a very rural region, and it is defined by being very close to, like, geographically close to the capital region. And as some of you might know, this does not, like, being close to a big city, but not having the city within your own regional geography, sort of can, especially in economic crisis times, which we had just gone through when I when I worked for this office, it can have an impact sort of on like pulling both financial and economic resources out of the region and into the capital, but also obviously social and intellectual capital, in the sense of what do you call it,
brain drain.
Brain drain. I think that's maybe a bit of rough terminology, especially for a Northern European country who were never in that much trouble, but still. So anyway, we faced some challenges, and that obviously brought on the incentives for the region to apply for EU funding for projects all around, for both small businesses, for the region itself, which mainly, like, the regional administrations in Denmark, their main responsibility is the healthcare system. And then thirdly, for municipalities who, well, basically have responsibility for schools, roads, sort of very, very, like, it's a citizen, close to citizen kind of functions. Anyway, so there was.
So your role, you're a communication guy. You needed to make all these people aware of all the fun, put the fun in funding. Your task was to make stakeholders aware of the fact that there were funding to approach, to attract external money into the region.
I was getting there. Yeah, it's exactly because this was not a place where people were too aware that all these opportunities of actually raising funds in Brussels existed. So, so that was my job. My job was to, I mean, to some extent, part of my job was to be like an extension of the European Commission communications department, like with focus on our own stakeholders back home. Secondly, also to make the press and the general sort of, like, stakeholder group and ownership group aware of the magnificent results we obviously had.
To inspire, so inspire others, and to inform about how easy it actually is.
Something like that. Yeah. And then just briefly, because now I promised, like, the reason I said that the Zealand office was because it was merged with the capital region's satellite office there. So now it's called it still exists. It's just called Greater Copenhagen EU office. Later on, I've moved back to Denmark. I have re-established myself as an actual journalist, but I do work now with constantly developing this newsletter for, well, researchers on research and their working life, workplace environment, stuff like that. So if you're worried that I lost touch with, like, say, what is Horizon, I still have a pretty clear idea.
No, thanks. So that's the background. That's why your claim to fame, so to say, in this context, that you know something about the context of Brussels funding. You know how to convey a message to a difficult target group that not necessarily think they should do this. So you have been working a lot with how to deal with the strategy, and this is a nice bridge to what you're gonna get here. First episode here, if you listen from start to end, it's going to be quite some episodes. I can promise you that. But if you listen from start to the end, a nicely outlined strategy, because I've seen the outline from Casper, and it's you'll be well dressed up if you listen to this from start to the end.
Yeah, but I mean, just to elaborate slightly on that. So what I've done is, I don't know if you want to introduce the theme, but like, I mean, I have.
Nah, it's your strategy. So let us have it. So what is the frame here? What is the discourse?
So like you said in the beginning, we could have probably easily talked about 2, 3, 4 hours about what a communication strategy is.
Mm.
But I've tried to sort of divide it into like small pieces instead for it. I mean, no one listens to the same podcast for like more than like 24 hours in a row. No, I'm joking. But like, I think it's probably the best way to do it. So, I mean, today we're going to take the first bit of what I want to talk about when I say communication strategy.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is we will record 3 episodes in a row, and then I will release 3 episodes in a row. So you'll get a batch of in my short format when I release these things. So you will have 1, 2, 3 episodes when this is going up. No, Casper, where do we start?
Right. So we start by defining and identifying, and a little bit of analyzing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 3 points, three different points I want to go through in this episode, I guess, and that is to define your objectives. Like, secondly, let me go through them first. Secondly, to identify your target audience, and thirdly, conduct what we call a SWOT analysis, not to be mistaken by any kind of like elite American police force or anything like that. I'll come back to that. These are in a sense drawing a treasure map. Forming a whole strategy is drawing a treasure map. This is like the first steps of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is like finding out where do we start from.
Mm-hmm. So first point, define clear objectives.
Yes. So, like I said, communication strategy is a way to, like any other strategy, really define where you want to go, and then narrow down the road to go there, because 1,000 roads leads to Rome, or whatever you say, but only one might be relevant in a certain communication product or towards a certain goal. Basically, start out finding out, first of all, your why. Why do I need to communicate? And secondly, what is it exactly I want to achieve by communicating?
Yeah.
This can be fairly tangible, fairly concrete, because you can also very easily fall into that ditch where you start defining abstract goals and means, and you end up addressing not only yourself, your team, or your entire organization, because it can actually work if you be concrete.
Yeah, and you put a tip here, because that was exactly would be my next question. So how do you avoid falling into the trap of being fluffy or too unfocused, or how all you journalists, you have some very good toolboxes there. So share with us your idea here.
Back in the day, I believe in the 80s, a guy, this is not supposed to be a history lesson or anything like that, but I looked it up, and it was a guy named George T. Duran who first wrote down these SMART criteria. And SMART, or like, it's an abbreviation, so SMART criteria. They stand for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
Excellent. Yeah.
So write SMART in a row on a paper, like on top of each other, not horizontally, and then basically tell yourself how do I make this specific? How do I, like, first? Let me give an example.
Yes.
So if you're sitting there with a research project, I think for many funds, also EU funds, you do have a communication, like you somehow have to document the fact that they communicated your findings, or at least the fact that you have started this project to the public, because it needs to add to a greater good of like a greater pool of knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So say you would define a communication objective that was to increase the media coverage of your research findings, say in major European publications by 50% within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Within 6 months is the time bound. 50% is both specific and probably you'll know this best, also achievable. Is it relevant? Yeah, because if you're applying for money from Horizon, any kind of part of Horizon, basically like your aim is to create knowledge for the entire Europe, right? So that's relevant and measurable, 50%, right? Because you can actually track these things. Especially if you have a good communications department, they're probably used to doing this. If you work at a university, or what do I know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could, if you were to sell a product, or you were to increase awareness of your brand, you could define the target audience that you wanted a certain percentage increase of brand awareness, and you can track this by doing surveys or focus groups or whatever, and you can define the time frame by 3 months. In 3 months, I want 18 to 30-year-olds to know this brand this much, or like, yeah. I mean, I mean, you get the picture. I think for some years at my old job, we basically just had a few to make it achievable and to make it like specific. We need to go from 800 to 1100 followers on Twitter /X within a year.
Yeah, I'm gonna put all these things in the episode on the episode site. So there's gonna be a site specifically for the episode. So I'm gonna put these examples here so people can if you sit and listen to it on your phone, you can run through these examples so you can read them at the same time, because it makes more sense that you can follow like this the examples that you're giving here, right? So because it's very tangible and clear. Yeah, strategy. It's very you get it, right? If you have this, if you follow the SMART criteria, it's very obvious that you follow them just step by step, and then you can go into a team reflecting if there's some little bit of a doubt. But it's very, very concrete how to approach it when you use this. So it's a great tip.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's defining the objectives. Then move on to the next sub bullet here: identify the target audience.
Yeah, let's try that. Like again, like what the listeners should be aware, but I'm sure they live with that anyway, is that obviously some of these things we're gonna probably overlap and repeat things because they become relevant throughout probably all the episodes now and then. But anyway, because we already talked about audience in a way, but now the next point is to identify your target audience. Some people say, like some communicators say, hey, audience is everything. As long as you know your audience, you basically can't fail. And to some extent that's right. But I would be bad at being a guest on this show if I just said that and agree with that, because why the hell am I rambling about all the other stuff? And it is important because in your mind, if you look at someone, if you think of someone you want to know about this specific message, this specific thing that you have done, or if you know this person, then you're also very close to formulating the right message.
Indeed. So it's for many of you out there, if you sit in a we discussed this before we hit the record button, right? So what are actually our receivers here for listening to this podcast? And we have two pillars, two main groups of you out there. You have all the people sitting in the Brussels bubble. You have all the people sitting as communication consultants in associations or innovations clusters, not only in the Brussels bubble, but also in organizations throughout Europe, where you sit and work with communicating about the funding schemes, right? And then the other big group we have out there, it's you people that are implementing communication strategies through funded projects. So we are going to switch in between those two groups, and you will understand each other, because many of you do both. You communicate and try to attract your stakeholders from a specific socioeconomic group, like district heating companies, whatever, food companies within a specific sector, and at the same time you are involved as partner in an EU-funded project where you've sort of synergized between the two things that you do there. Now, that's just to make this clear. That and and what I want to say with this target audience for all of you, but especially for the ones that sit and try to communicate about EU R&D funding, it's vital. You need to understand your group. You need to understand who you're talking to.
What grinds their gears, so to speak? I mean, what gets them out of the chair? What gets them excited? What gets them angry? What gets them...
That's best.
I mean, angry is good. That's a good appeal because, like, you would play on emotions, like, but it's not always constructive because anger is also a temporary feeling. So that sort of falls again.
But a destructive feeling. You don't want
that. Yeah. What I think would be my key point here is, I think the word resonate is in it. The English word resonate here is very good. So you need to find out who your audience is in order to find out what resonates with them. A strategy, a tip here, to be the advisor here, is to define this person.
Yeah, that's very media. That's a very media-ish.
Most people out there would be used to maybe using at least a sample of a large group or a large audience. Now you need to boil this 100,000 people that you're thinking of down to one person who is the average of all that, and it's doable. And
it's very used in the media sector, both in visual and written and so on, radio. And I haven't done it.
This is what media and communications departments all around do nowadays.
But I'm also did that.
Yeah. So,
anyways, hit us with your knowledge.
So basically, like, what is this person's interest? How does this person speak? Where does this person live, etc.?
Yeah.
How many kids do they have? What car do they drive? As specific as possible.
Yeah. What music do you listen to? What's their favorite dinner? Everything. Yeah.
Try to define that. Like, it could be. Now, I come from like an organization that dealt a lot with healthcare. I mean, obviously, we a lot of our communication within the healthcare area would be targeted towards healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
But even healthcare professionals are people with cars and kids and interests. I'm not saying you should find a message that they would only understand when they're back at home. But I'm just saying, be human, even though you speak in a professional language. Or if you're trying to sell T-shirts, what average person wants to buy this specific product? What is special about my product, and why does this person want my product instead of the next guy's product? Could be examples of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, people then the clever listener, all my listeners are clever.
Obviously,
they would say, yeah, okay, I will have to develop a persona, average persona, but how do I do that? Sweethearts out there's nothing else to do. Guys and girls, talk to people. You need to talk to a lot of people. You need to talk to your members. You need to talk to your stakeholders. You need to talk to your board members. You need to talk to whoever you are supposed to need to talk to. Talk to everybody, but you need to talk constantly. Talk a lot. You need to acquire. You need to get your group under the skin, as I say. You need to feel them. You need to go to where they are. You need to, if you work for someone supporting manufacturing industries, go there. Visit them. What is it like there where they are producing little bits and pieces for cars or for whatever? What are their problems? What are their pains? How is life for them with what they do? To understand and calibrate. So you calibrate, you understand and convey how can EU funding help this company or this organization? How can it lift them up? How can they come to a better place through EU funding? Now, how do I communicate that? How do I get them interested based on you understanding them. So you have a lot of, so this, Casper, here we're down to human psychology, right? It's a matter of empathy. It's a matter of being able to communicate and clear and be you need to be likable. So you
Yeah.
need to, if you're an introvert person, you can. I was introvert when I started out, when I came out of university. I was not the best networker, but I taught myself because I had to through the works that I. But if I had not done that, I would not have understood all how to soak up and understand properly what group of people I was talking to be able to approach them the right way. So you need to get yourself out of the comfort zone. If you don't not if you're a natural born networker, fine, you'll be fine, no problem. But if you're not, you have to push yourself a little bit, because if you don't understand the people you're supposed to explain why this is important for them, you're gonna get the message wrong. You're not gonna get the angle wrong. They will not catch you. You will not understand. These guys, they focus on this and this. They rarely, they only read newspapers, maybe tabloids. This group, they only read a very content, very detailed literature in relation to what they do, or so you need to understand how to what is it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's a very good point. I mean, and I think even if you are like, say, if you are the introvert type, or you just don't know where to start.
Mhm.
I mean, if you, like, for instance, if you work in an organization that has a political layer, like there's also political strategy, or like at least political priorities or opinions. So find out where the winds are blowing and in
Yeah.
which direction,
Mhm.
and how can I, with me, because ultimately probably that political level will be the one making the ultimate decision about whether to spend resources on joining, say, a project with seven other like partners throughout
Mhm.
Europe, and if they need to like put resources into that, they need very, very good arguments back to their constituents, because ultimately their goal, well, maybe they say they have ideals and they want to change the world, but
Mhm.
ultimately they want to get reelected. And
Exactly.
you can provide them with the arguments to put out there in front of the population or the constituents, where they can defend that decision, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Now we're actually talking about, we also talked about this in the episode we recorded. I think it was episode number 14 or something like this. So people out there, you actually have two target groups. You have the main target group
Many,
of your
actually.
of that your organization is working for, but then you have the silent target group. You have the target group that you yourself as an employee in the organization has, and that is exactly this: the board, the decision makers, the people
Mm,
that needs to fund your desk. Why is it relevant to have you around? And the more you calibrate with what they want, it's always
yeah.
good with decision makers to be on good terms with them,
Yeah.
to see them, to understand them.
Be that a board or like actual elected politicians or whatever, it's still a political level where they need to be able to answer for themselves. You can
Yeah.
provide them with the ammunition to do so. If you, I mean, I do have an example if you're interested, Niels.
Yeah.
I have on several occasions been at, say, like larger conferences of back home in our like mothership region, where the local politicians would basically read out from articles I had written on this and that local project that was partly or fully EU funded, because I had written it in such a way that demonstrated first and foremost what the benefit was for the local population in the area of the whatever municipality or whatever that participated in the project, or the SMV who participated, like, um,
Mhm.
so that's another. I mean, we will get into this in later episodes on
Yeah.
like more concrete tools in the actual writing and stuff.
Excellent. Let's move into the SWOT. SWOT analysis. Most of my listeners would know what a SWOT analysis is, but short: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right?
Yes, there's no massive secret within, or like extra tip or like within communication that is not. I mean, but what you could
It's more giving them advice to use it.
Exactly. And for my own case, I was the sole communication person in my office, but I had like a knowledge base of consultants around me who knew the substance of everything.
Yeah.
And they could easily, in a meeting, they could tell me what's up and what's down, what's S, what's W, what's O, what's T here.
Yeah. And I want to recommend, it's for SWOT analysis, it's always good to sit in a group and brainstorm. It's always good to, I've just done it at my working connection with an initiative we are administrating, and where you had the different members of the board. They were sitting first, they got 5 minutes themselves. And then they were putting up on a whiteboard, right? And then we were discussing them as they came on. And then there were group discussion, like there were breakout groups afterwards to qualify stuff like this. You can do a lot with it. But the point is that doing this you can conduct it whatever, facilitate however you want. The most important thing is that you have critical mass to make sure that you sort of get a good balance, or get the knowledge, as much knowledge that covers each of the 4 corners, to say, okay, this sort of frames this frames this, and then what? Because that's it. So you get this out, and then, so what's the tip?
This is exactly the tip. Is exactly what you're saying. It is like to sit down. Okay, so let me explain why I think
how to use it when you move on. That was
100%. I agree with you here, because this is not only the last point of this episode, it also begins to open the first point of the next episode, because this is where, for me at least, the creative process begins. And that is not to say that like objectives and target audiences are not creative per se, but they are just things you need to define out there in the horizon. This is where you get into a deeper discussion within your team, within your organization, about what's good, what's bad, what would come out in which way. You might, as a politician, let's say you were brainstorming with your media advisor, you might line up scenarios. If we say this happens. If we say this, that happens. If we say the third thing, a fourth thing happens. What do we want to achieve? And back to the previous points and all that. But and the reason I agree so much with your point is that you cannot yourself do not have is my I think my theory. A single person does not have the brain capacity, at least to, within a condensed time frame, to come up with all possible, especially in communication, potential negative outcomes of.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why you need a second brain, a third brain, synergy within like a horribly overused term, but still.
Yeah. And the thing is, as you say, in the next episode that is shortly about to start, it's show how you can how you move on from here now.
Sorry.
In the next episode here, then how you move on from here, but because obviously it's a strategic planning tool that you get you map the core elements of what your organization is looking at, where you're strong, where you're weak, what are there out there that you haven't picked up yet, and what can threaten that. So those are core elements for any organization, and you can make it for any organization, no matter what you are doing. And then these answers to these things defines, okay, if we want to do screw parts for brakes for cars, this has the thread, then if that's the weakness, but this is maybe, then if we need to make a new one, we need to make it like this, because then we go around the thread of it gives you sort of, it instrumentalizes your strategy. What your real world actions, it instrumentalizes them to say, okay, if we do this, that's the breast where we need the brainstorm. If you do this, but wait, we have weakness here that can make havoc. So then we need to think a little bit about how to handle that if we want to do it like this. So maybe we need to start a different place to, so it sort of forces you to think the steps through.
And this is exactly what I meant when I said this is where the creative process starts, or the creative work, maybe, because anyway. And the next step is to start creating your actual messages, the wording. But I will get into that.
And on that note, we end up this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode to the end. We'll be shortly back with the next episode. See you. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. Want to win the mug? Well, find this post on my personal LinkedIn profile or the Grant LinkedIn site. Share your thoughts, throw a question, or give us feedback. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link in the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Casper's personal LinkedIn site and his communication company. Further, there'll be a link to the communication series main page. Finally, you will find the script that we have used so you can follow the examples and the structure of this strategy. Next up is the second episode where we zoom in on creating key messages, communication channels, content calendar, and a two-way communication. See you shortly. The Grant.